Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Football Goons podcast and Happy New Year as we're broadcasting here on the evening of January 1st, 2019. Hopefully, you're recovered from a long weekend of football, bowl games, NFL games, and parties as well. And now you're just looking forward to some playoff games this coming weekend. We're doing something fun here tonight as we're going to be live. We're not necessarily live drafting, but we just previously did a quick draft of the remaining NFL playoff teams, and we'll kind of give you an update on the rules and how it all worked out. But we're going to go through the selections that we made because we know a lot of people this time of the year are still doing fantasy playoffs. So you're drafting a team out of the guys who are left in the playoffs. So we'll give you a rundown of how we did it, what went into our thought process, and get you excited about getting involved in that. And then we're also going to preview the wild card games this weekend as well, talk about some of the keys to the game, who we think are going to win, and all that good stuff. But first, as you know, we've got to do a round of trivia. I know you guys are psyched about it.
Yikes.
And just for the fact, just to let you guys in behind the scenes here, 2 of the 4 goons, and I'm not going to call anybody out, are feeling really under the weather. So if they're already not excited about doing trivia, it makes it worse right now. So if you're watching live on YouTube, you'll probably figure out who they are, but not to call anybody out. So, all right. So the theme here this week is obviously wild cards. All right. So we're going to have some fun going over some wild card stuff here. We'll do 3 rounds, kind of how we've been doing it with an elimination style where once you get one wrong, we'll knock you out. If you get one right, you could stay alive and keep guessing. We'll take turns, kind of stump the goon style here. So, all right, first question here. Since 1970, 10 wild card teams have played in the Super Bowl. Let's name them. All right, now, I believe at this point, everybody's had a turn to go first. So I randomized this, and it gave me Deal to go first. So we will go Deal, Miles, Rocco in that order.
You're gonna need years too with these teams.
No, I just want the teams. Just the
really?
franchises. Just the franchises who have made it to the playoffs as a wild card and then went to the Super Bowl.
Okay, that actually makes it a little bit easier.
I'm looking out for you.
Are there any repeats?
No, it's just going to be
Okay.
regardless of how many times they might have done it. These are the 10 teams that have done it.
All right. I actually don't. This is not going to be in my wheelhouse for sure. I'll go Patriots.
The Patriots are on the list.
The 2010 Packers did it.
The Packers did do it. That's correct.
The Giants did it as well.
The Giants are correct. Back to you, Deal.
How about Broncos?
The Broncos did it in 97.
Wow.
The 1980 Raiders did it.
The Raiders did do it. We don't like to talk about that one.
Nope, that's bad.
What did Rocco say last? I didn't hear what he said.
He said the Giants last time.
Giants, okay.
And I'm gonna go with the Steelers this time.
Steelers are correct.
How about Ravens?
The Ravens are correct.
You took mine there, sir.
I'm just trying to think of teams that won Super Bowls. That's my hope here.
We've got 3 left.
3 left. All right. We said Steelers already?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go with kind of a shot in the dark because they've played in so many. I don't think it's right, but I'm going to go with the Niners.
The Niners are not correct. So Miles is out.
I feel stupid because I don't even remember if this was said yet or not, but the Packers.
The Packers were mentioned.
Oh, okay.
All right, Deal, it's up to you. You could take all 3 remaining, or you could flunk out. The good news is that you are up 1 now.
All right. I'm going to say Cowboys.
The Cowboys are correct.
How about Seahawks.
The Seahawks are not one. So everybody's been eliminated. The two that we have remaining are the Titans and the Bills. So not bad. We've got 8 of the 10. So round 2. This one is going to be much quicker. Miles will start this one off. Since the 2002 NFL restructuring, 4 teams have not played in the playoffs as a wild card team. Now, this, just to clarify, this doesn't mean that they didn't play in the wild card round. They just were not a wild card since 2002.
I believe that the Bengals have only made it as a division champion.
The Bengals are not one.
Oh, good
believe
start.
it or not.
This is
a tougher one.
This is a really tough one. You said 4 teams have not played as a wild card team.
Correct.
They didn't make it in 2.
So is this
all right? So then
teams that have played in the playoffs?
Yes.
I'm gonna go with a safety pick, I think, and say the Patriots.
The Patriots are one of them, yes. They have not been a wild card since 2002.
Even though they've made it pretty much every year.
Yeah.
How about Packers?
The Packers are not one. So Rocco's got a golden opportunity here to try and steal 3 more.
Jeez Louise. Okay. Shot in the dark here. The Washington Redskins.
The Redskins are not one.
Dang, man.
That was a tough question. I will admit that, but
Detroit.
no, the Bears have only went as a division winner. The Texans have only went as a division winner, and the Buccaneers have either not made it or only went as a division winner since 2002. Tough question there. All right, so here's how we can redeem ourselves. So because everybody is relatively close, we'll give this this is going to be worth 5 points. It's going to be the closest without going over. The last team to be a wild card team and win the Super Bowl was the 2010 Green Bay Packers. How many players are still on the Packers active roster from the 2010 team? I'll give you like 15 seconds or so to think about it as I repeat the question. The last team to win the Super Bowl as a wild card was the 2010 Green Bay Packers. How many players are still on the active roster for the Packers in 2018 from that team?
Closest without going over?
Closest without going over. Rocco, you go first this round.
I'm gonna say 3.
Okay. Deal. You got to take it off mute.
I'm just trying not to cough in the microphone, man. I got my back. I'm going to say 4. I was going to say 3 originally, but I'm going to say 4.
I can also only think of 3, so I'm going to say 5.
Was it we can't say the same answer?
For me, I'm in last place.
You technically can, but it's not worth the risk of doing it if you're not in the lead. So
I don't know if I'm in the lead.
You are. You are 4. Rocco is 3. Miles is 2.
I want to say 3 then.
All right, you could say 3.
Okay.
But you're wrong. For the first time ever in the history of our pre-talk trivia, it was hit on the head. It is 5 players.
Yes,
man.
The winner.
Man, you said 3.
I can only think of 3.
Rodgers, Clay Matthews, and Mason Crosby is all I can think of.
Brian Bulaga was a rookie,
Okay.
and Tramon Williams was a rookie.
I had in my head I had Bulaga, Rodgers, and Matthews. I forgot about Mason Crosby. So
I just had Crosby, Matthews, and Rodgers too.
Yeah. All right, good stuff there. Wild card trivia, fun as always, at least for me. So let's take a second here and talk about.
Too bad for Miles though. He didn't have enough points to win it. So
he won seven points.
I'm just kidding.
All right, let's talk about our friends at Gorb here. It's a new year, and with that comes a lot of new resolutions. And no matter what your resolution is, there's one trend, one behavior that you have to have, and that's motivation. Or, as our friends at Gorb like to say, you've got to get hungry. That's what Gorb is all about. It's either get hungry or be hungry. Those are your two choices in life, according to Gorb. That's GHORBH. And while you're thinking about what you want to achieve this year, what you're hungry for, what you want to go for, check out gorb.com, GHORBH.com. Get yourself some gear to be constantly reminded of those resolutions that you made, of the decision that you made this year to get hungry and finally go after what you're passionate about, what fuels you, and what you want to achieve this year. Check them out at gorb.com, GHORBH.com. All right, so before the show started, we did a draft, basically using all of the players who are left in the playoffs. And I'm going to let Miles give just a brief description here of kind of how this works. For those of you that have played the NFL.com playoff fantasy, this is real similar. We're just kind of using our own customized league scoring. So, Miles, let us know.
Yeah, so we each drafted a team of 10 players, 3 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, and 4 pass catchers. So obviously receiver and tight end being lumped together there. And everybody was eligible in the 12 teams who made the playoffs. And the way our scoring works, wild card round, your fantasy points are what they are. You score 20, you get 20. Divisional round, we're going to multiply by 2. Conference championship games, we're going to multiply by 3. And the players that make the Super Bowl, we're going to multiply by 4. So obviously the strategy here, not only draft the best team as far as players go, but we're also taking into account our predictions because it's beneficial to get teams that are going to stick around. So you want to pick good players from teams you think are going to win, obviously. So the downside to some of that is, as Rocco will get to, like those teams with buys, you already have zeros for one of the rounds. But the good news is you're guaranteed double score in their first game. So pick good players, pick players that are going to stick around.
Yeah, so again, you're going to see how this differs from goon to goon about how we value like what team is going to advance, obviously. So if somebody goes heavily toward one team, you know, it's pretty obvious that they feel like that team has a good shot of playing on Super Bowl Sunday, or at least playing deep into this tournament. So you'll notice kind of a running theme here. Like there's a team where we almost have no players from. So there's not a ton of confidence there. So Rocco had the first pick. So Rock, why don't you tell us how your team ended up and give us just a little bit of insight into how you feel after the fact here.
We actually played this game last year amongst the 4 of us. I don't remember if we talked about it on podcast or not, but I actually won this last year with kind of this similar philosophy, so I kind of stay with it again. It's so hard to predict, but I want to give myself the best chance to wind up with players who are going to be playing in the Super Bowl, because a 20-point game from Drew Brees in the Super Bowl, if the Saints get there, is actually worth 80 points. So it's real beneficial. So I kind of stacked myself with NFC players of teams that I think can get there. I went with my first pick, Todd Gurley. And then after that, I went Breeze, Deshaun Watson. I went Jared Goff, DeAndre Hopkins, a little combination there. Same way as you like to, get a combination in fantasy. You can get the same kind of combination here, quarterback to wide receiver. Also went Brandon Cooks, Travis Kelce, James White, Josh Adams, and then rounded it out with Amari Cooper. I also went with the strategy of making sure that I was not the last person to get stuck with a quarterback that nobody wanted, because that was South's demise last year. South probably could have beaten me last year if he went a little bit different with that. Getting stuck with a quarterback who is eliminated in the first round is kind of drastic here, because once your point value start doubling and tripling and quadrupling, it really stinks if you don't have any quarterbacks left. So I was the first one of the 3 of us to have all 3 quarterbacks there.
Yeah, And I like the balance across your team, just because like you're not necessarily in a spot where if one team gets knocked out that you weren't expected to early on, that you're totally crippled, which is something that you always have to balance out, because we all have teams that we feel like we're pretty confident in that they're going to play on Super Bowl Sunday. Like if, for example, last year, if you had a high confidence level in the Rams with the way that they were playing, and you had Todd Gurley, and you took Jared Goff or whatever, and then you had a receiver as well, it didn't work out because unexpectedly they got rocked right away. So it's kind of crippling to you. But I feel like you did strike a pretty good balance across your team.
Yeah, and as you were talking about before we went, you have 6 players already alive in round 2.
Yep.
Six of your 10 players are guaranteed double points.
I only have 4 of my 10 playing this week.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So
you'll be in last.
I'll be in last. I'll be in last at the end of this week. That is an absolute certainty. But if the Texans win, then I have 8 players guaranteed playing next week when double points are in play.
And if the Texans win, I'm quitting.
Yeah, but to your point too, though, like the whole idea of 6 guys next week, like how often do we see where, especially last year, the wild card games were really awful. Like there wasn't a ton happening, especially if you were playing like daily or, this NFL playoff fantasy. I mean, we were treated to the wonderful Bills-Jags game last year.
Right.
I think maybe other than the Saints last year, like no team really lit it up at all.
Low score.
It was pretty low scoring. Now, I don't totally expect that, but there's always that possibility. So you don't have to stress too much about not scoring a ton of points that first week if you're confident in your second week guys. Deal, who did you have?
So I went a little bit off the cuff from my normal fantasy, actually a lot. I took more risks here and a lot more risks. And I wanted guys, actually the opposite of Rocco. I wanted guys that I know are playing this week that I can get pretty good scores out of, but also who, have a shot to make it. Now it was more of a risk. However, I have Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, and Dak Prescott as my quarterbacks. I think I can get huge scores out of all 3 of those. Then I have Melvin Gordon, Chris Carson, Jordan Howard, who obviously Melvin Gordon is still a question mark with his injury. He looked good last week in limited time. I expect him to be full scale here in the playoffs and now play well. Chris Carson has been a monster. Jordan Howard has now come on, is playing excellent. If they can get into the second round, I love him there. Then my receivers, my pass catchers are T.Y. Hilton, Keenan Allen, Julian Edelman, and Tyler Lockett. Same thing, took some risks. T.Y. and Keenan are the ones that I 100% expect to play. I know that's an unpopular opinion with Keenan, but they're the guys I expect to play for sure in the divisional round. Julian Edelman and Tyler Lockett are more question marks, but guys that can put up big numbers. Julian Edelman still has pretty good connection there with Tom Brady, and Tyler Lockett has been consistent all season. Is consistently not great, but putting up numbers and scoring here and there. So I like his chance to score.
So I like your team, but I guess the risk is probably what's concerning to me. Like in the first round, have 3 guys on the same team who,
Yep.
by all accounts, a lot of people are looking at that game as a little bit more of a toss-up than we would have a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Yep.
And we've got comments on YouTube as well about, Melvin Gordon being a little bit extra risky with being banged up, and then you're playing the Ravens or whatever. So, I mean, if you had to put a confidence percentage on it, how confident are you? Like
Confident to win it all?
Well, no, that they survive and play again.
Oh, I'm still confident in San Diego. Yeah, I'm confident in San Diego. No, I'm confident in LA to still win. I still think that, the Ravens are playing well. I don't take anything from them. I still just don't think they're that good. I just don't. And I don't think anything has changed for the Chargers. So in my mind, nothing is different from a few weeks ago. Chargers are still playing well. The Ravens are outperforming by tenfold what we expected them to do. But everybody's acting like, oh, now the Chargers fell off. The Chargers are still playing well. So I don't expect them to lose at all.
The only thing I really don't like, and I kind of avoided this too when I was picking my team, and I don't know if you guys think about this at all, but this is a fun little, since this is our fun little game, I don't like to have two quarterbacks who are playing each other this week. It guarantees that I'm going to be down a quarterback going into round 2. You know what I mean? Obviously,
but it also guarantees that you have a wild card quarterback who you're going to get his points and double points next week. It's a guarantee.
Oh, of course, it's a guarantee on that part. But you're eliminating yourself, and by stacking players the way Deal did, he's going to lose a quarterback no matter what. If the Cowboys happen to win and the Ravens happen to win, Deal's essentially out because he only has 3 players left. So.
But if they don't, I'm in by a lot.
Right.
Well.
And it goes back to what he started the whole thing with. This is more risk than Deal usually takes.
Yeah. And if you said, well, I now have the same players you have plus all my points from round 1.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think you'll see, like, when we get to my strategy a little bit, I like the idea of trying to figure out the wild card quarterbacks who could hang around a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge plus. So, Miles, tell us how your team unfolded.
Yeah, it unfolded beautifully. I mean, I'm staring at it here, and I'm just such a fan of how things went for me this evening. You will see that my predictions came in pretty hard. I am predicting a Colts Saints Super Bowl, so I really targeted those 2 teams, especially the Colts, because that would give me points in every round. So my number 1 player was Alvin Kamara. I was able to get him 3rd overall because the other 2 were silly. And then my 2nd overall player was Andrew Luck, and I was able to get him after South went ahead and passed on him twice because he's silly. So right off the bat, I was thrilled to death. But how my team ended up, I have Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, and I was the one stuck with the 12th quarterback. Mitch Trubisky is my 3rd quarterback. And even that, I'm not that sad about because he can put up fantasy numbers, and he's a 6-point favorite at home. So I got a shot there. Had to clear my throat for a second there. I was struggling. So Andrew Luck, Tom, I think going back to the beginning of the pod, it's probably not a secret who's the 2 sick guys anymore.
No, it's
not. So Andrew Luck, Tom Brady, Mitch Trubisky are my quarterbacks. I like the mix there because I think Luck's a Super Bowl player. I got Brady already in the 2nd round, and I hope, like anything, Trubisky loses. But if he doesn't, I've got solid fantasy points 2 straight weeks. My running backs, again, riding that Saints-Colts bandwagon. I have Alvin Kamara, Marlon Mack, and then I completely stole Sony Michel in one of the last rounds here, the 2nd to last round. My pass catchers, I went tight end heavy, which is unlike me, but I like the matchups that these guys have. I do have Michael Thomas, again, the Saints. Then I went with Zach Ertz and Eric Ebron. I think Eric Ebron's going to shred. The Texans can't cover a tight end to save their lives. If you're still playing daily, Eric Ebron needs to be your tight end this week. Please make that happen for yourself. And then I rounded things out with Doug Baldwin, who's been playing incredible football lately. I know Dallas has been playing better on defense, but if Seattle's going to win, he's going to make a few big plays. So I really like the way my team ended up. I kind of split the difference, as South did as well, between Rocco taking a bunch of guys from the bye, Deal only taking 1 guy from the bye. I have 4 players who are guaranteed a divisional round, 6 playing this week. I like that balance for myself to be set up in decent standing after week 1. And then if the Colts win, I'm in great shape.
Yeah, I guess the thing that scares me for you is Trubisky, just because his last 4 or 5 games, like, he hasn't been all that great. So again, like, it's a brand new season here, as they like to say around the league. They are home favorites. The Eagles have been prone defensively to give up some points to quarterbacks. Maybe not so much the last couple of weeks, but coming from being the guy who had Tyrod Taylor last year, who laid a total egg in the wild card round, kind of had him given to me as the last quarterback. And it scares me just because I just went through that. Like, obviously I want to win, but there's a part of me too that hopes, like, oh man, I hope he doesn't get like an 8-point week from Trubisky and he's out and then he's chasing that for the entire rest of the playoffs. So
I think it was a hedge your bet. Well, obviously, I didn't plan it. Trubisky was my 12th quarterback, and I got stuck with him. But
Right.
It's a nice hedge your bets thing for me because I hope he plays like trash and I get negative 10 points out of him. we have nothing at stake here, and I'm an Eagles fan, so I hope he plays horribly because everybody else on my team will carry me. And if my predictions ring true, all 4 of us are losing a quarterback this weekend, so I'll be okay with that.
I think it's kind of funny looking at your team, just because for those of you who are not paying attention and keeping notes on who we're picking, only 2 Bears were taken in this entire contest. If the Bears defense somehow like gets them through to the Super Bowl, like you having Mitch is huge because
I won.
You won. It won't even matter. So
I'm just eating up all those points.
All right. So, and then 4th pick was me because I lose every lottery. So my quarterbacks, I got Patrick Mahomes, Nick Foles, Lamar Jackson. My running backs, I've got Zeke Elliott, Damian Williams, Gus Edwards. Then my pass catchers, I've got Tyreek Hill, Alshon Jeffrey, Rob Gronkowski, and Robert Woods. I run an even split, 5 guys playing right away, 5 guys who will play in the divisional round. So I felt pretty decent about that. I didn't try to go 5-5, but I wanted to have some kind of a fair split in that regard. And then at the quarterback position, I wanted to make it obvious right out of the gate that I wanted to get the best fantasy quarterback still left in the playoffs, who I thought was at least a lock to play in the AFC Championship game. I still think that they are going to the Super Bowl at this point. So I scooped up Mahomes there. He's going to be playing at home. It's a little bit different situation for him. And then I wanted to get Foles and Jackson because, in my opinion, I feel like they're locked to at least play a second game. Well, I shouldn't say a lock. They are likely, in my opinion, to play a second game in the playoffs. One of them I feel like could go even further than that. So, and then with Zeke, you can't disregard what he does when he plays. They're going to have to lean on him so heavily if they want to advance. I do think, that they are going to advance. So I like that pick. And I think that they're a dark horse to play into the NFC Championship game, as much as that just hurts my heart and my brain and everything. Obviously question marks with my other 2 backs, but if they play like they had been over the last couple of weeks, I'll be good there. I went with Tyreek and Alshon. And then my biggest, to me, risk as a pass catcher was Gronk, because he's been real slow this year, but it's playoff time. So if you don't think that you're going to get the best version that you can of Gronk at this time of the season, then I guess we can't agree on that. But I just feel like he's going to be ready to go 100%. He's going to have it turned all the way up. The Patriots are going to be motivated. So I'm expecting him to come back a little closer to the form that we expect of him. I don't know. I saw some head shaking on the Pat Mahomes comment. So,
well, I just don't. It's hard to say this, but I feel very strongly that the Colts are going to the Super Bowl. Very strongly.
I would hug you right now.
And that's the Chiefs' first playoff game. This is going to be the Colts. So I, therefore, transitive property, I feel very strongly that Patrick Mahomes is going one and done. So while he may put up decent numbers there, I just think that's a horrible matchup for the Chiefs. Not to get a week ahead of ourselves here, but there's no way you can look at those 2 teams, and the Colts are just behind the Chiefs as far as offensive production lately. And then the Chiefs defense is nowhere near playing the caliber the Colts defense has been. So I'm scared of that being your first round pick from my point of view. I mean, you don't share my point of view, so of course you're not scared about it.
I'll add to your point of view. Actually, the only matchup where I think the Chiefs are outright winners would be against the Texans, and that's the only team that they can't play.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's either going to be the Colts or it's going to be the winner of the Chargers-Ravens. Chargers have already beaten the Chiefs this year. Ravens defense looks fantastic. You know what I mean? So the only game where I'd say the Chiefs are, I mean, they're going to be favored in every game. We're not stupid here, but the only game where I think that they have a definite advantage over their opponent would be the one team that they can't play. So it was tough for me going into this thinking about taking any Chiefs.
All right, let's talk about our wild card weekend predictions here. So obviously we're at a point in time where it's a little early in the week. We're coming off of a holiday, so these are probably not in the spotlight as much right now. So we're going to kind of get ahead of the game here before everything gets kind of like beaten to death conversation-wise on these games. But we'll start right away. Saturday, the early time slot, we have the Colts at the Texans. I feel like based on the temperature of the room from our draft game, we kind of know where we're leaning here. But I'm going to ask you, give me, in your opinion, and whoever wants to jump in, the keys to this game and who you think wins.
My key to this game is T.Y. Hilton. He has historically, his career, 103 yards per game against the Houston Texans. Seems to play even better in Houston. 13 catches for 314 yards against Houston this year alone in his 2 games. I mean, 199 and 115, absolutely killing these guys. Now, he hasn't gotten in the end zone in either of those games, but what that does to the Houston Texans defense is completely spreads them out. And they're already one of the worst teams in the league guarding the tight end. So when you spread the team out with T.Y. Hilton and then let Eric Ebron eat, and the 3-headed monster at running back kind of take care of business, if they can have T.Y. Hilton give the offense all kinds of momentum, all kinds of rhythm, get Andrew Luck going, that combined with how many weeks in a row have we said Houston is not a home field advantage as far as they can't hear and they, Luck should be scared or whatever. I think if T.Y. Hilton can play the way he typically has, it's going to be difficult for Houston to keep up.
I agree that I think that the Colts are going to win this game, but I think it comes down to something totally unexpected conversation-wise when you talk about the Colts over the last couple of years, and that is up front on both sides of the ball, because they've been so efficient with running the football this season, and really that's the way to beat this Texans defense from what we've seen, when they've been able to be beaten at this point is – if you can gash them by going straight at them, because they're so athletic as pass rushers that if you just drop back and throw 40 plus times, you're playing into their hands. But when you can control the line of scrimmage, when you dominate time of possession, you keep Deshaun Watson off the field, keep the ball out of his hands, that's really how you win the game. And then on the other side, from a pass rush perspective, the Colts have really improved there as well. It's really kind of flying under the radar from their perspective. What's not flying under the radar is how often Deshaun Watson just gets knocked around like a pinball back there in the pocket. I think going into last weekend, at least, he was the most hit quarterback in the league by quite a bit. I don't know if that changed after week 17. I doubt it, because it felt like he was still kind of like a crash test dummy back there last week against the Jags. But if they can keep him hurried and pressured and hit him, I think that's going to be the difference, is if they can continue to dominate on both sides of the line of scrimmage, which is so weird to me to talk about with the Colts, because they've just never been that team.
I think this is a fun one for sure. I think this might be my favorite matchup of the weekend, to be honest. You have two teams that play in the same division, know each other well. The 2 games this year were split 1-1. Each one won by 3 points by the winner. I think the key, obviously, is that Colts front offensive line. Can they keep Andrew Luck upright? Keep Watt, Clowney, and that whole pass rush away from him. Because if they can, he can have a day. And I don't think this is going to be a low scoring affair by any means. I think this is going to be a high 20s, low 30s game. I'm a little bit more 50-50 on it, but gun to my head, I'm going to take the Colts on this one.
Always got to go gun to your head.
Always got to go gun to my head.
I can't figure this technology thing out. I don't know what's going on. I took the Colts, obviously. I think the key to the game is their defense. Their defense as a whole. Like Rocco said, they split this season 1-1. First game, arguably, they really should have won it. Second game, they won by 3, but if you watch that game, like
Yeah.
it was not a good game. Like the Colts dominated them. It was crazy that it's a 3-point game. Luck threw for almost 400 yards. So if the defense holds up, which they've been playing excellent, I like Luck to shred their defense. And even in that 3-point game where it was really one-sided, Marlon Mack led the team with 33 rushing yards. He did have a touchdown, but I like the rushing game to come up a little bit better than that. Luck probably isn't going to throw for 400, but I also like him to throw for more than 2 touchdowns, and I don't think this game's close.
All right, so we've got 4 for 4 on the Colts on the road to kick off the weekend for us. A game, Rocco said that was probably the most interesting game to him. The game that I think is going to be the most interesting, Seahawks at the Cowboys Saturday night in Jerry's World. What are the keys to this game, and who do you think wins?
I think the cool part about this game is you basically have 2 teams who want football games to go the same way. They want to run the ball. They want to play great defense. They want to run the ball again. And then they have athletic quarterbacks who they can rely on to make big plays for them when needed. So what I kind of think the difference is, and the key to this game, is can Dak Prescott match Russell Wilson with such a difference in playoff experience? Dak's only played 1 playoff game. The Cowboys lost as the number 1 seed 2 years ago. Russell Wilson should have 2 Super Bowl rings. He's well seasoned in the playoffs. So I like Zeke. I like Chris Carson. I like the battle this is going to be. I do agree with you, Sal. I think, will be the best game. Ultimately, I have Seattle moving on with a 24-22 win, and I think Dak finally has that costly turnover as the Cowboys try to drive to win the game.
I think the key here is the Cowboys defense. If that defense shows up and plays the way they played against New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, then this is not a game. If they get off the ground, running with Zeke, let Dak hit him up with play action, get Amari Cooper involved in the play action game, and play defense the way they played in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, then the Cowboys are going to run away with this. I think it'll be a little bit closer than a runaway, but I actually do have the Cowboys here. I like them in like a 21-17, 21-14 type game.
Yeah, I think that it's so weird when you try to look at these 2 teams. Like, they are identical. They really are. Like, they want to do the exact same things. Obviously, the nod at quarterback goes to Russell Wilson. So you're really tempted to kind of make him the tipping point. But when I really look at it, I think that the biggest difference is going to be Dallas's linebackers, because they've been playing so well between Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith. And, you have such athleticism from that position that if they can continue to limit opposing teams' running attack like they have all season to this point, really, and they make Russell Wilson drop back a little bit more than the Seahawks have been wanting to this season, they have the linebackers basically who can shadow him and can contain him and keep him from really doing too much damage. And I feel like we've said that a lot before, where it's like, hey, just kind of keep him funneled in and stop him from killing you with his feet. And then he just kills you with his feet anyway. But I just feel like we have not seen the type of athleticism that you're going to see from the linebacker position that could really cause fits for him. And then their edge rushers have played way, way better than anyone has expected. I think that their defensive front really makes the difference in this game. But this is a tight one for me. Like, this is like a 20-16 Cowboys win.
I went Seahawks. I think that, like you said, you can make it easy that Russell Wilson is the tipping point. He is to me. He's a big tipping point. Like, it's not like, well, this is a close game and Russell Wilson's a little bit better, so that's the nod. Like, he's not only a way better quarterback, he's the leader that can take this team under his wing and say, we're going to win this game. And their defense is strong enough that he can do that. So I like the skill position around him. Obviously Ezekiel Elliott's better than Chris Carson, but Carson's playing great right now. Plus the other running backs are still playing well, and the receiving core is doing work. So I like them. I actually like it a little higher scoring game than you're both saying. I like it to be upper 20s game here, but I like the Seahawks by at least one score.
All right, the early Sunday game here is the Chargers at the Ravens. The 12-4 Chargers were rewarded with a 1 o'clock start in Baltimore for week 1 of the playoffs. Give me the keys to this game and who wins, in your opinion.
This was interesting to me just because we just saw this game a couple of weeks ago, not long ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? Mm-hmm. I still think the Chargers are a better team. I think that when you put it all together, obviously on paper, they have the better quarterback, the more experienced quarterback. We did not get a healthy Melvin Gordon last time. I don't know what his percentage is this time. If he's even close to 85, 90%, then I think the Chargers hand the Ravens a loss this week. I think the big key here is the health of Melvin Gordon, because if you get a healthy Melvin Gordon in there, that is all the difference in the world. Not that, Jefferson and Jackson and Eckler aren't good players, but they're not Melvin Gordon. So healthy Melvin Gordon puts the Chargers over the top for me.
Yeah, I actually disagree with you. I predicted the Chargers to make the Super Bowl preseason. I kind of rode with it all year until 2 weeks ago. And in LA, 10 points, 198 yards. And I'm not so sure Melvin Gordon's fully healthy. I mean, why would he be? So that on top of how the Ravens are playing is unbelievable right now. Unbelievable. Lamar Jackson's playing with unreal confidence. The only game they've lost since he took over was overtime in Kansas City. And all due respect, Philip Rivers has been incredible. He's not Patrick Mahomes in 2018. I don't think he has the playmaking ability to get to the outside and challenge the Ravens defense with those run-pass options. And I don't mean the RPOs that every announcer shoving down our throat. I mean literally get the quarterback on the edge and give him the option to throw the ball or run the ball. That's not Rivers. And I think that's the only way to kind of get Baltimore's defense on their heels. So like kind of South alluded to, it's a horrible draw for the Chargers having to come not only to the East Coast, but to play 10 a.m. local time for them. I just think it's too much to overcome with the way the Ravens are playing. I have 20-13 Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what you're saying. Like, you basically touched on almost every single one of my points. And I think
it's because I'm really, really good at this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because you're really, really right. I mean, look, I love Philip Rivers, but the fact of the matter is that I'm not so sure that if they can't be a little bit more balanced running the football, that he's not going to just be swarmed all game. Like, their offensive line in pass protection still leaves a lot to be desired for me. They've been able to kind of hide that with the fact that they've been so good at running the football, but I just don't think that Melvin Gordon is healthy. I really don't. I mean, he kind of got hurried back into the situation when they played Baltimore at home. The coaching staff had said that, hey, if it wasn't a short week, he probably would have played, but I don't know that would have made a difference because he just doesn't look like the same player at this point health-wise. You're starting to see that, Rivers is feeling a little bit more pressure to do more on his own. So he's not being as consistent as he was in earlier parts of this season. And the Ravens defense, like, when we talk about really, really good football teams anymore, like, we kind of look for offense because that's the era that we're in. But we're just glancing over the fact that this is a really special defensive unit. And there's not a whole ton of like big profile names on this team either. You have Suggs, who's about, 60 at this point. But other than that, like, you really can't give me a ton of names that are just like household every day, talked about names on this, like some other teams would have a JJ Watt or whatever. they just play as a unit. They get it done. They all do their job, and they're where they need to be, and they're super efficient at it. I think this is probably like a 17-7 Ravens win.
Yeah, I already said earlier, I think the Chargers win this game. I know the Chargers looked bad 2 weeks ago, but they're the kind of team that I think takes a wake-up call there, turns it around, and I think Melvin Gordon, probably not 100%, but I'll take him pretty much any percent he is over most players in the league. And the big key to me is a little bit what Miles said about the last game, the level of maturity in quarterback. This might be the biggest difference in level of maturity in quarterback in sports history. The difference between Phillip Rivers and Lamar Jackson is monumental. Now, I don't take anything away from Lamar. He's playing well, like maybe not putting up unbelievable numbers, but he's playing well, and he's really put the team on his back. But I like Phillip Rivers to do that here in the playoffs with his maturity, with the maturity around him, because just their team is an older team, and I love them to really rally the troops here and get some redemption from 2 weeks ago.
All right, final game of the weekend is the Eagles at the Bears. Give me the keys to this game and who's going to win it.
I think it'd be easy to kind of chalk this up to the key to the game being Nick Foles continuing to play magical football as he has, as the media is calling it. He's been playing really well. To me, it's actually a little bit more how Trubisky responds to the playoff atmosphere and the Eagles defense that is now, lately, the last few weeks, playing more like the defending Super Bowl champion defense. They found that swagger again. They found that confidence again. The defensive line is playing unbelievable football with Fletcher Cox actually leading interior rushers in sacks the last 4 weeks. Just taking care of business. And can Trubisky get on the edge and run the ball like he has been to be effective early in the season? I think that's kind of the key to this game. And similar to what I said in Dallas and Seattle, I tend to not like first playoff start or going for the first playoff win quarterbacks versus really seasoned teams. And while no, Philadelphia is not seasoned in terms of year after year after year making the postseason, they dominated the postseason last year. Absolutely dominated. So I like the Eagles to take what they learned last year and put it into play in Chicago. It helps them that the weather's not supposed to be ridiculously Chicago-esque for January. I think I heard like 42 degrees. So that allows, the weather to not really be much of a factor here. I like the Eagles to take care of business here in Chicago as underdogs yet again.
All right, I'm going to go. I thought Kevin Smith was going to go, so I'll go instead. Listen, this is I've been hearing all week, like from the media, so all weekend so far from the media, the Eagles were not a very well-seasoned team last year either, and the Bears are very similar in that regard, and they're up and coming, and defensively they've got a lot of swagger, and I'm not sure that I totally buy into that, because really what you're looking at is experience at the coaching level for me at this point. Now, like as a young play caller, Matt Nagy has done a great job. He's basically right where Doug Peterson was last year, where he came out of nowhere. Not necessarily came out of nowhere, but he came on unexpectedly, faster than most people would have thought. So to me, the biggest difference in this game is going to be which one of these play callers has the biggest set, flat out. Because if you get to a point where you're not willing to be who you are offensively and take some of those risks, which both of these teams do, whoever is the first person to kind of step back from that, in my opinion, is probably going to cost their team this game. Because I think that this is a really even matchup on both sides of the ball. The Eagles probably have, a little bit more as far as like name and experience. But when you really break it down, they're very similarly built teams. They really are. They on both sides. The line of scrimmage is going to be contested all game. It's going to be a great battle to watch if you're like an offensive line, defensive line nerd like myself, who just wants to see how quick, Lane is getting out of his stance and things like that. But to me, this game is going to come down to that. Who's willing to stick to their guns as a play caller? And I think it comes down to a last-second field goal from Jake Elliott, 27-24 Eagles.
How about the Darren Sproles versus Tariq Cohen factor? Tariq Cohen watched Darren Sproles film.
Yep.
I mean, it's just kind of cool that the two midget running backs kind of going at it at different points in their career.
Yeah, I mean, even Trey Burton as tight end going up against Zach Ertz, like there's just so much of that across the board.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me here, I agree with the experience factor, but I'm going to look at it even a little bit different way. The Eagles got hungry late in the year because everybody was counting them out. They've essentially been playing playoff games for 3 consecutive weeks now because a loss at any point pretty much would have eliminated them from contention. So you have a team that for 3 consecutive weeks has been in a kind of one and done type of scenario, and now it's another one and done scenario for them. They just got off of a playoff run. I was talking to my brother about this a little bit. If you're the Bears, do you let the Vikings win so that you have to play them again, or do you play your hardest and eliminate the Vikings? Honestly, if I'm the Bears, I don't want to play an Eagles team that just won the Super Bowl. That scary things happen when you let teams that are counted for dead when you let them alive, and usually it's not good for you when you leave them alive. So I like the experience of the Eagles here. I like the fight late in the season to get into the playoffs, and I like them to actually make a push this week, even though going to Chicago, I don't think it's going to be that difficult for them, and the experience really takes over. I like them in I don't want to say a blowout, but I like it to there be a little bit of distance where Chicago maybe scores a late touchdown to close the gap, but like 27-20.
I picked the Eagles because I have to go home to an Eagles fan, and I want to. That's the only reason. No, I like the Eagles here in a close game. The only game that the Bears lost at home all season was Week 7 against the Patriots, 31-38. But I like them to lose here again for the second time this season, which isn't a lot. But they do have home field advantage, and it's a pretty big one there in Soldier Field. And I like it to be a loud atmosphere. But the Eagles, under that, still Super Bowl mentality, they were down and out this season, again like they were last season. But they rallied it back. And if Nick Foles is the answer here to rally it, I'm not sure, but it looks like he is again. So I like them to win at least this week against the Bears in a close game.
All right, well, there you have it. We're looking forward to some wild card weekend football here. Good luck if you're playing in NFL playoff fantasy or any of those different fantasy games, your daily fantasy as well this weekend. Still a lot of fantasy football to be played, even though the regular season is over. So hopefully you're getting involved and active in that. Keep up with us at facebook.com/footballgoons, at footballgoons on the Twitter, and right here on our YouTube channel live every week, recording the podcast. And then even after the fact, if you leave comments, questions, we always try to get back to you on those as well. Check out footballgoons.com as well. Your number one source for all of our articles and rankings and everything that we do is posted up there and updated regularly. So keep up with us there, and we'll catch you guys next time.